Imagine a traveler who never stops moving. This entity does not chase its targets, nor does it break down doors to reach them. According to the oldest stories, it simply arrives. And the most unsettling part is its method. It only needs to utter a single word to seal your ultimate fate. That single detail changes everything. What happens when the very sound of your name becomes the instrument of your final departure? You cannot hide from it, and you cannot bargain with it. When this phantom approaches a dwelling, no lock or barricade can hold firm against it. Heavily barred gates swing wide on their own accord, and heavy wooden doors creak open, permitting the shadow to enter without a single physical touch. But there is a strange rule binding this unstoppable force. Throughout its entire, relentless journey across the moors and valleys, it is permitted to speak only a single time. It draws its dark steed to a halt, raises its gaze into the cold air, and utters one solitary word, the name of the individual whose time in this realm has expired. The very instant that name slips into the night air, the person's life essence departs, and their earthly journey is irrevocably concluded. One detail does not fit. If this entity is so powerful, why is its voice restricted to just a single breath? The answer to that lies in its physical form, and that is where the legend takes a truly bizarre turn. The most terrifying part of the legend is not what the creature does, but what it carries. Most people assume this wanderer of the night is simply a phantom draped in black cloaks, but the truth is far more disturbing. The creature is completely without a head upon its shoulders. Instead, it carries its own detached visage with it, casually tucked under its arm like a grim parcel, or held high in the air to survey the desolate landscape. The appearance of this separated crown is described in the old tales with a visceral level of detail. The skin is said to be pulled incredibly tight across the underlying structure, resembling the stretched, pale parchment of a snare drum. The complexion holds a sickly, ashy pallor, likened by early storytellers to the texture, consistency, and hue of spoiled, moldering cheese. However, the legend becomes even more mysterious when you look at its expression. Below its piercing gaze rests a wide, unyielding grin that stretches unnaturally from ear to ear, revealing rows of impossibly sharp teeth. It is a smile utterly devoid of joy, representing the cold, absolute certainty of the fate it brings. What happened next changed the legend forever. You might think that a separated crown would render the entity blind. How could a creature navigate the twisting, treacherous roads of the countryside without its eyes in their proper place? The reality of its vision is a secret most people never realize. The creature's eyes are its most terrifying feature. They are disproportionately massive, glowing with an eerie, erratic luminescence. They constantly dart back and forth with the frantic, restless energy of trapped insects, scanning the darkness with an otherworldly perception. This profound supernatural vision allows the phantom to pierce through the darkest nights, gazing across vast distances to unerringly locate those whose time on this earth has reached its conclusion. But that wasn't the strangest part. The entity harbors a deep, aggressive disdain for anyone who attempts to spy on its grim duties. If a curious individual dares to pull back the curtain or peek through a keyhole as the phantom passes, they will face immediate retribution. To punish these onlookers, the wanderer wields a remarkably long, terrifying whip. This instrument of control is no ordinary leather lash. It is forged from a flexible human structural column, a pale spine, cracking with supernatural force. The entity lashes out with this grim weapon, striking the spy squarely in the eyes. In other regions, it is said the rider will hurl a basin of dark, crimson fluid directly into the face of the onlooker, marking them with the taint of the unseen realm. Folklorists theorize this reaction is born of a dark envy. Lacking a crown upon its own shoulders, the phantom deeply resents the sight possessed by mortals. But the solitary rider does not always travel alone. Sometimes it brings a vehicle so bizarre, it defies the laws of nature. In many accounts, the phantom abandons its lone steed and takes the reins of a massive, foreboding transport. This is the Cóiste Bodhar, a carriage woven purely from nightmares. The architecture of this dark carriage is a grim testament to its solemn purpose, built entirely from the tragic remnants of the departed. The central axles that bear the heavy weight are formed from the elongated structural pillars of fallen men. The spokes of the massive turning wheels are carefully carved from sturdy leg remnants. In place of traditional lanterns, the path ahead is illuminated by hollowed-out visages, empty crowns burning with an unnatural spectral candlelight from within. Yet, there is a massive contradiction hidden in the folklore. The name Cóiste Bodhar translates to the Soundless coach or deaf coach. Some terrified witnesses recount seeing the massive carriage glide past their windows as a completely silent shadow, making absolutely no sound despite the heavy hooves of its 6 steeds. Others, however, claim the exact opposite truth. They insist the coach earned its name because the bone-rattling rumble of its approach is so thunderous, it leaves those who hear it temporarily bereft of their hearing. The truly unsettling part comes later. For centuries, people wondered where this nightmare came from. Was it always a monster roaming the hills? The hidden history reveals a much darker origin. To understand the creature, we must cast our gaze far back into the mists of antiquity, returning to the ancient emerald shores of Ireland. Long before modern roads carved their way through the rolling hills, the land was ruled by enigmatic entities that held sway over the changing seasons. Among these formidable figures was an ancient deity known to the early inhabitants as Crom, Dubh, the Dark, Bent One. Revered and feared in equal measure, this powerful being was inextricably linked to the autumn harvest and the ongoing fertility of the soil. Under the reign of the ancient ruler, King Tigernmas, monumental tributes were regularly made to this shadowy deity. But these were no ordinary offerings. The deity explicitly demanded tributes where the crown was permanently and physically separated from the earthly form. In return for this supreme sacrifice, Crom Dubh ensured that the land flourished and the crops grew tall. However, the legend becomes much darker. As new eras dawned, missionaries arrived, challenging the old ways and ending the ancient rituals. The old deity was denied the tributes that had sustained his formidable presence for generations. Deprived of these offerings, the dark entity underwent a terrifying transformation. It chose to personally roam the shadowy roads, taking form as an unstoppable phantom to actively claim the life essence it was no longer willingly given. Thus, the ancient force of the harvest evolved into an eternal wanderer, forever known in the whispered lore as the Dullahan. But with such divine, unstoppable origins, you would assume there is absolutely no escape. You would be wrong. Every unstoppable force has a hidden weakness. For this ancient harbinger, its greatest vulnerability is something remarkably simple, yet profoundly mysterious. The entity harbors an intense, inexplicable aversion to gold. Even the smallest fraction of this precious metal is enough to break its dark resolve. The stories tell of a solitary traveler in County Galway making his way home through the desolate countryside, enveloped by the pitch-black night. Suddenly, the rhythmic, terrifying sound of heavy hooves echoed behind him. The phantom was closing in rapidly, the dark steed gaining ground with every passing second. Panic set in as the traveler ran, knowing his ultimate end was riding at his heels. But as he stumbled, a tiny golden pin came loose from his clothing and tumbled to the earth. The moment the dim moonlight caught the gleam of the precious metal, the monstrous pursuer let out a furious, deafening roar of absolute terror. Paralyzed by the sight of the gold, the entity violently turned its horse around and vanished instantly into the night, leaving the traveler incredibly safe. Most people don't realize why this works. Gold is recognized as a symbol of the sun, enduring purity, and unbreakable vitality. It is a metal that never tarnishes, never succumbs to the rot and decay that defines the phantom's existence. Confronted with this small beacon of enduring light, the creature of shadow cannot maintain its presence. but the mystery deepens when we examine the actual encounters recorded by historians. Much of what we know today about this terrifying nocturnal rider was preserved by Thomas Crofton Croker, a 19th century scholar who traveled the Irish countryside to record oral traditions. In his groundbreaking work, Fairy Legends and Traditions of the South of Ireland, he captured encounters that forever shaped the myth. One of the most famous accounts is the harrowing tale of a peasant named Larry Dodd. While traveling near the Galtee Mountains on a dark evening, Larry generously offered a ride to a woman heavily cloaked in fabric. When Larry sought a romantic reward for his kindness, he confidently pulled back her hood, only to discover she lacked a head entirely. Overcome by sheer terror, his consciousness faded away. When Larry awoke, he found himself in the crumbling ruins of an ancient abbey. He witnessed a massive gathering of these dark entities surrounding a wheel of unending torment. He was offered a strange drink by the silent host, but when Larry opened his mouth to compliment the beverage, a sudden coldness swept his neck, and his own crown was severed mid-sentence. That should have been the end of the story. You would think every encounter with the Phantom ended in tragedy. But Croker recorded another tale that completely contradicts everything we know. The legend takes a strange turn with the story of Charlie Cullinane. Charlie was riding home late one December night after a long day in Fermoy. Near Kilcomer Hill, he noticed something impossible. The head of a white horse floating beside him, followed by a massive headless rider dressed in a scarlet coat. The entity stared at Charlie with glowing eyes from the visage tucked under its arm. By all established rules, Charlie's life essence should have been claimed right then and there. But Charlie, known for his daring nature, decided to speak to the Phantom. To his absolute shock, the detached visage answered back. Instead of acting as a harbinger of doom, the horseman challenged Charlie to a cross-country race. They leapt over walls and ditches at full tilt in the dark. When the race concluded, the Phantom admitted it had been searching for a brave rider for 100 years. It praised Charlie's courage, promised him good fortune, and simply vanished into the air, stuffing its head into its coat pocket. This surprising account completely fractured the established lore. Was the entity an uncompromising angel of the end, or a complex spirit capable of respect and game playing? The answer remains hidden in the misty hills. But what happened afterward changed the legend on a global scale. As generations emigrated from the Emerald Isle, they carried their rich tapestry of folklore across the vast ocean to new lands. In the process, the ancient stories adapted to unfamiliar environments, seamlessly mingling with local histories. This cultural migration profoundly influenced an American writer named Washington Irving. Exposing himself to Celtic lore and the published tales of Croker, Irving took the fundamental essence of the Irish Phantom and transplanted it into the dark woods of New York. In his classic tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the supernatural deity of the harvest was ingeniously reimagined. It became the restless spirit of a fallen Hessian cavalryman who had tragically lost his crown to a soaring cannonball during the American Revolution. While the origin story shifted from ancient pagan deities to colonial battlefields, the core mechanics remained absolutely identical. The imposing black steed, the midnight pursuit, the severed visage, all trace their lineage directly back to the dark, winding lanes of Ireland. It proves that primal fears transcend borders and oceans. Yet, the entity's evolution did not stop in the colonial woods. It was about to enter a realm no one could have predicted. In our modern era, the Phantom has experienced its most unexpected revelation, yet finding a prominent place in global digital culture. The entity was resurrected in popular video game franchises like Castlevania, maintaining its ancient status as a formidable armored adversary wielding massive weaponry. But the truly unsettling part is how the myth changed in Japanese animation. The terrifying harbinger was woven into the complex fabric of modern, urban society. In the acclaimed series Durarara, the ancient entity takes the form of a transporter named Celti Sturluson, who traveled from Ireland to the neon-lit streets of Tokyo. her traditional silent coach transformed into a sleek, black motorcycle. Instead of bringing a dark fate, she navigates the complexities of human relationships, acting as a strangely empathetic guardian of the night. Even more surprising is the series Interviews with Monster Girls, where the myth explores themes of physical differences. A character named Maki navigates high school life while carrying her head in her arms, turning the ultimate symbol of the end into a powerful metaphor for adapting to life's unique hurdles and finding inclusion. From the ancient altars of forgotten kings to the glowing screens of the modern age, the legacy of the Headless Wanderer is a profound mystery. It began as a force of the harvest, morphed into the ultimate harbinger of the final threshold, and evolved into a global icon. So, if you find yourself walking alone on a crisp autumn night, and you hear the distant rhythmic drumming of hooves in the dark, remember the old tales. Keep your eyes lowered, do not peek into the shadows, and sincerely hope you have a small piece of gold tucked safely in your pocket. For the Phantom Rider still wanders the unseen realm, and if it speaks your name, your journey is at its end.